All right, so we're talking about the Seahawks and how they did it and what they've shown us about what a Super Bowl champion t- what it takes to be one in 2026. Who's the next Seahawks? One of the things that I mentioned about the Seahawks that made them so devastatingly good this year is they weren't spending big money on overpriced positions. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle. The Niners are heavy into those positions, and it's tough when you're spending 30 plus million on a left tackle and 50 plus million on a quarterback and 30 plus million on a wide receiver. And they got out of that contract. But they were really, really spending a lot on these things. Seahawks don't. They're great in the trenches. Niners haven't been that in a long time. They're great. They have a great secondary. Hell of a middle linebacker. So who could replicate their formula? I think it's worth noting that Sam Darnold was a big part of it last year. He was cheap. Now he's their highest paid player on the team in terms of cap hit. His cap is like $37 million, which makes, I know they do have cap space. So maybe John Schneider can figure it out. But it's going to be a much different roster construction for the Seahawks next year. I'm curious to see what it looks like. If they lose anyone, we'll see. They might repeat next year. But if they don't, who could sort of do what they did? I think that team is the Houston Texans. I feel like their defense is just as good as the Seahawks defense. And the reason that they didn't make it as far is because their offense is a freaking disaster. But I don't think it's as far away from being mediocre enough to win a Super Bowl as maybe other people do, because I actually think their quarterback is fine. I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's worse than Sam Darnold. I think he's fine. I think he has a really good wide receiver in Nico Collins. They drafted a couple other guys last year, and Higgins and Knoll, who have promise. They were rookies. They have some tight ends. What they don't have is an offensive line or a running back. I don't know about their play caller either, but it's interesting. He comes from New England, and then he spent 2 years with the Rams. D'Amico came from the Niners. He had Bobby Slowick, who also came from the Niners. He fired Bobby Slowick to bring in this Nick Caley guy who was, with the Rams. So that's kind of D'Amico sort of pointing or sort of showing that maybe he thinks the McVay tree is a little, or the McVay system is a little bit better than the Kyle system. That's the way I interpret that. But if they can run the ball in Houston, they have a chance. Their running backs this year were Nick Chubb and Woody Marks. That's not serious. And they got rid of offensive linemen. If I wouldn't be surprised if they spent their first pick on an offensive lineman and their second pick on a running back, and if they hit those, then their offense could be good enough. And their defense is. And look, I always base my opinions on teams when I've seen them in person or quarterbacks. And so my impression of the Texans, take their defense out of it because they were facing the Niners backups, but their offense, I saw CJ Stroud absolutely dice up the Niners defense. They were missing people. But still, it's like he played like a vet. He was very mature. He took his ego out of it. The Niners sort of forced him to dink and dunk, and they didn't think he was competent enough to do it, and he did it. I think if he had a running game and a play action game and it wasn't all about him, I think they could win it. And wouldn't it be really something if D'Amico Ryans gets a Super Bowl before Kyle Shanahan? Would that be the final nail in his 49ers coffin? Darnold gets a Super Bowl before you got it. Okay. D'Amico too? Here's a question. The 49, one of the most interesting things that Eddie did as owner of the team was push out Walsh when he did. 88. The next year, they win a Super Bowl with Walsh's defensive coordinator as the head coach, George Seifert. And really, it was Bill's staff. They kept everyone. They just got rid of Bill. And they were better the next year. They won 14 games. They blew out the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Kind of interesting. What if Jed had done the same thing? What if Jed had fired Kyle after 2022? Just because you didn't win the Super Bowl and you got Brock Purdy hurt and you didn't protect him and you tried to block, what was it, Hassan Reddick with the backup third string tight end? And what if you just fired him then? It would have seemed crazy. But it's the kind of thing Eddie did. And you could have You could have replaced him in 2023, the year the Niners had the best roster like ever that didn't win a Super Bowl. You could replace him that year with D'Amico. And the offensive coordinator could have been Clint Kubiak, who just won a Super Bowl. Let me ask you this. I mean, I didn't advocate it for it at the time. This is heavy duty revisionist history. Pardon me. But will the history books show that the Niners actually would have won the Super Bowl in 2023 if their head coach were D'Amico and their offensive coordinator were Clint Kubiak? Is Kyle Shanahan a better offensive coordinator than Clint Kubiak? Yeah, probably. But is D'Amico a better head coach than Kyle? Would D'Amico have lost that Super Bowl? Because that's exactly what Eddie did, right? Hey, Bill, thank you for building all of this. Now we're removing you from what you built and keeping the entire structure, and we're going to be better without you. Niners could have done that if Jed had the same foresight as his uncle, but he didn't. And so you're waiting for Kyle in year 10 to do something that Darnold did in his first year with the Seahawks, that D'Amico could do in his fourth year with the Texans. Yeah, that'd be rough. I just feel like it's so improbable that the Niners have no Super Bowls in the last 30 years. It's incredible. They had every opportunity. They could have stumbled into a Super Bowl victory at one point, and it's really impressive that they didn't. It's remarkable. MB says Burrow will be available next offseason. The goal should be position yourself to get a top 5 quarterback or watch the Rams get him. Yeah, I suppose. The problem with Burrow is that he gets paid all the money and gets hurt. So, I mean, they gave him 2 of the best wide receivers in the league. They can't win anything with Burrow over there. They have no defense. I don't know. Is just getting Joe Burrow the ticket to winning a Super Bowl? It doesn't look like that. That doesn't seem to be the trend, just having a top 5 quarterback. Bills still haven't gone to a Super Bowl with a top 5 quarterback. Neither have the Ravens. Chiefs missed the playoffs with a top 5 quarterback this year. I don't know. B&A established 1988 says getting Njoku or Higbee to pair with Kittle. Yeah, I would rather get a tight end than a wide receiver. Draft wide receivers. They're expensive. Tight ends are underpaid. Sign as many as you want. You're getting a great deal every time you sign a tight end. Every time. You're getting fleeced every time you sign a wide receiver. Fleeced. Plus, you signed DeMarcus Robinson last year, and he's under contract. Man, use him. Ezio Sanchez says Niners were so thirsty in 2016. They let a 36-year-old OC pick the GM. Imagine Seahawks giving that much power to McDonald. Seahawks won with the opposite formula this year. That's the Yorks are weak. Yes, that is correct. The Niners were that thirsty. They were that desperate for, competency. And that's what Kyle delivers. If you're an incompetent organization like the Niners were 10 years ago, or like the Raiders are right now, or the Titans, or the Jets, oh my God, even Kyle would win with the Jets. Kyle would have the Jets feeling good. He'd have them in the mix. He is the dream coach for the New York Jets. Will he win a Super Bowl? Who cares? We're the Jets. We just want to not be the laughingstock of the freaking league. We want to be in the playoffs. Kyle provides that. He's a great coach for a lot of organizations, but if you really have, Super Bowl standards, I don't know if he's the right coach for you. Maybe he'll prove it at some point in his life, but so far it's been a long time and he hasn't. And the Niners really shouldn't have. Maybe if he goes to another team, like with a stronger organization, if he were to go to I don't know. The Seahawks don't need a head coach, but if he would go to the Seahawks, maybe he would actually work with John Schneider and be better. Or not. Search for Six says all fun and games till they hire another yes man to Kyle Shanahan.